I am 19, and I fell in love with a homeless man, then he betrayed me with my sister. They said I was too young to understand love. But no one warned me what it feels like to build someone from rock bottom only to be stabbed in the heart by him. And my own sister. This is the story of how I fell in love with a homeless man at 19, helped him get back on his feet, gave him everything I had, and then watched him throw it all away for the one person I trusted most, my sister. It's not just a story about betrayal. It's about how love can blind you, how trust can break you, and how healing sometimes begins with walking away from the people you die for. If you think your love life is complicated, wait till you hear mine. Because it gets real. Fast. Before we dive into the story, please like this video and subscribe to my channel for more powerful stories. Thank you. Let me ask you something. Have you ever fallen for someone who had absolutely nothing? No house, no job, no direction. Just a look in their eyes that made you believe they could be everything? Yeah, I did. And it broke me in ways I never imagined. Let me take you back to the very beginning. I was 19, fresh out of high school, the kind of girl who thought she had the whole world figured out just because she read 2 self-help books and binged a few TED Talks. My life wasn't perfect, but it was safe. I had my little routines, morning coffee, helping my mom at her flower shop, binge-watching old rom-coms on weekends while dreaming about the kind of love that would knock the air out of my lungs. But what I didn't know, what none of those movies ever told me, was that sometimes love doesn't knock the air out of you. Sometimes it suffocates you slowly while you smile. It all started on a rainy Thursday. I remember it so clearly because that was the day my favorite cinnamon roll shop reopened after 2 weeks of renovation. I was excited, silly excited. As I rushed down the sidewalk, umbrella flipping from the wind, I noticed him. He was sitting on the old wooden bench outside the bakery. Soaked. Shoelaces undone. A half-torn hoodie covering a face that looked like it hadn't seen peace in years. But even then, even when he looked like a mess of a human being, there was something about his eyes. Something that made me stop walking. I pretended to check my phone, but really, I was watching him. People passed by without even looking at him, like he didn't exist. Like he wasn't even human. But something tugged at me. I can't explain it. Maybe it was guilt. Maybe curiosity. Maybe I just wanted to feel useful for once in my overly predictable life. I walked into the bakery, got my cinnamon roll, and walked out again. He was still there. So I did something I'd never done before. I sat down beside him. He looked at me like I had 3 heads. "You sure you're not lost?" he asked, his voice hoarse and dry. I shook my head. "No, but I figured you might be." He chuckled. Actually chuckled. Cute line. I broke my cinnamon roll in half and offered it to him. He hesitated, but then took it, as if his pride and hunger were still fighting each other. And just like that, it began. His name was Jaden. He didn't talk much at first. Just small pieces. Said he'd been on the streets for a couple of months. Lost his job, then his apartment, then his friends, then himself. But there was more. You could feel it, like someone who had a storm buried under a fake calm. I started seeing him every day, on that same bench. Some days I brought him food. Other days I just sat there, listening to whatever little he chose to share. I didn't tell anyone about him, not my mom, not my friends, not even my sister, Amelia. They wouldn't understand. To them, homeless people were either addicts or criminals or both. But I didn't see that. I saw potential. I saw a broken man who just needed someone to believe in him. And God help me, I believed. Weeks passed, and slowly, Jaden opened up. He told me he used to study computer science. That he once had a plan to start his own tech company, but life had other ideas. His father died. His mother fell into depression. Bills piled up. Then came eviction. Then the streets. Every piece of his story made me ache.
He wasn't a bad guy.
He was a hurt guy. And I wanted to be the girl who healed him. Soon, I started skipping lunch to buy him food. I dug into my savings to get him warm clothes. I even found an old phone of mine and gave it to him, just so he could call if he ever needed help. "You don't have to do this, he said one evening. "But I want to," I replied. He looked at me then, really looked at me. And for the first time, he smiled. Not a polite one, a real one. The kind that makes you think, maybe I really am changing something in this world. And that smile, it did something to me. That was the moment I knew I was falling. I tried to fight it. Tried to remind myself that I didn't know everything about him. That feelings aren't enough. That life isn't a fairy tale. But it was too late. My heart was already his. And one night, I told him. It was quiet, almost midnight. I had sneaked out after dinner just to bring him leftovers. We sat on the curb, our backs against the bakery wall. "I think I like you," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. He didn't say anything at first, just stared at the ground. Then he said something I'll never forget. "I'm not good for you." But even then, even after hearing that, I didn't walk away. Because love makes you stupid like that. After that night, something changed between us. He started texting me from the old phone. We met more often. I found him a shelter nearby that allowed him to stay for the winter. I helped him apply for a part-time job at the grocery store. I even taught him how to update his resume. It felt like I was building him piece by piece. And every new piece made me love him more. One day, he showed up at my door. Clean-shaven, wearing a button-up shirt I'd gotten him from a thrift store. He was holding flowers. Cheap ones, but it didn't matter. "For you," he said, almost shy. That night, we had our first kiss. And in that moment, it felt like everything, every sacrifice, every late-night sneak out, every penny I spent was worth it. I thought we were unstoppable. But I didn't know. The betrayal was already on its way. You see, in every story, there's always a twist. And mine? It wore the face of someone I trusted the most. My sister, Amelia. Want to hear how the person I loved most ended up with the person I saved from the streets? Then don't blink, because it gets worse than you think. And no, this isn't some cliché sob story. This is real. And I still wish I could erase it from my memory. But here we are. They say family is supposed to protect you. But what they don't say is that sometimes they're the ones holding the knife behind your back. Let me introduce you to Amelia, my older sister by 3 years. Beautiful, confident, the type who walked into a room and everyone just naturally turned their heads. She was the star child, my mom's pride and joy. The one with straight A's, glossy lips, and a closet full of dresses that still smelled like expensive perfume. And me? I was the quiet one. The helper. The girl behind the flower shop counter, hidden under a hoodie and the shadow of her perfect sister. But I didn't hate Amelia. I loved her. I looked up to her. That's what makes all of this so much harder. At first, she didn't even know about Jaden. Not because I was trying to keep secrets. It just felt fragile. Like, if I told someone, it might ruin everything. You know that feeling when something is too precious to share? Like a dream you don't want to say out loud because you're scared it'll vanish? That's how Jaden felt to me. But secrets have a way of leaking. It started with a text. "Who's Jaden?" she asked, scrolling through my messages as I was in the kitchen. I froze. My stomach twisted. "Oh, just a friend I've been helping." Her eyes narrowed, lips twitching into a smirk. "Helping, huh?" I brushed it off, tried to change the subject. But Amelia was a bloodhound when it came to gossip. And deep down, I knew curiosity would get the better of her. A week later, she asked to meet him. At first, I hesitated. I mean, why would she want to meet him? This wasn't her kind of crowd. Jaden wasn't flashy or rich or connected. He was still piecing himself together. But Amelia insisted. Come on, I'm your sister. I just want to make sure you're not being scammed. Scammed. That word stung. But I agreed. Stupid me. We met at a quiet park. Jaden had started looking better. Hair combed, fresh clothes, even a slight confidence in his step. When he saw me and Amelia together, he looked startled, like he didn't know which of us to look at. "This is my sister," I said, grinning. "The one who interrogates all my friends." Jaden chuckled. "Nice to meet you." And Amelia? She did what she always did. Hair flips, laughs a little too loud. Lightly touched his arm when he said something even remotely funny. I tried to ignore it. I told myself she was just being social, but something didn't feel right. That night, I couldn't sleep. Jaden had barely looked at me during the walk back. And Amelia? She seemed way too interested for someone who was just checking in. I told myself I was overthinking. That I was being paranoid. But paranoia is often the brain's way of warning you about the truth you don't want to see. Things started changing. Jaden's texts became shorter. Calls less frequent. He started canceling our plans last minute. Said he was busy with work or tired from shifts. I wanted to believe him. I chose to believe him. But you know that pit in your stomach when something just isn't right? It was there, growing, every day. Then came the moment that ripped my heart in half. One afternoon, I came home early from the shop. My mom was out. Amelia was supposedly at a friend's house. I walked into the kitchen, and there they were, Jaden and Amelia, kissing, not a little peck. Not a confused accident. A full, passionate, I've wanted this for a while kind of kiss. I stood there frozen. The bag of groceries in my hand dropped with a loud thud. They turned. Jaden looked horrified. Amelia? Smug. Almost amused. "Wait, it's not what it looks like," Jaden blurted. I didn't wait to hear more. I ran. Have you ever felt your heart split into two? Not like in those teen dramas where someone cries and gets over it in a day. I mean the kind of pain where you can't even breathe. Where your body feels cold from the inside out. Where every lie hits you at once, like a car crash that doesn't stop. That was me, lying on my bed. Crying so hard I thought I'd never stop. How could she do that? How could he, after everything I gave him, my time, my money, my trust, my heart? He tried to call. Dozens of times. I ignored every single one. He sent messages, long ones, apologies, excuses, desperate explanations. I didn't mean for this to happen. I was confused. I still love you. But love doesn't cheat. Love doesn't kiss your sister while you're out buying groceries for them. Amelia, on the other hand, didn't even bother pretending. She walked into my room the next day like nothing had happened. "You're being dramatic," she said, flipping her hair. "It's not like you guys were married." That sentence still burns. Not like we were married? No, we weren't married. But that doesn't make the betrayal any less cruel. What followed was the worst month of my life. I stopped going to the shop. Stopped replying to friends. Stopped caring about food, makeup, clothes, everything. It was like someone had switched off the light inside me. And you know what the worst part was? I kept blaming myself. Maybe I moved too fast. Maybe I gave too much. Maybe I was stupid for believing that a homeless man could ever truly love someone like me. But here's the thing. That self-blame? It's a lie. Jaden made his choice. Amelia made hers. And now, it was time for me to make mine. I could stay broken. Or I could rise. I didn't want revenge. I wanted peace. But life had other plans. Because what they did to me, it didn't just ruin a relationship. It tore our family apart. And the karma? It was coming. And soon, things would get even uglier than I ever imagined. Because betrayal has consequences. They thought I'd stay broken. That I'd keep crying in my room, feeling sorry for myself, hoping for closure I'd never get. But I wasn't going to let them win. Jaden and Amelia didn't just betray me. They taught me the most painful but powerful lesson of my life. People can say they love you and still lie to your face. They can hold your hand while stabbing you in the back. So, I did what they never expected. I stopped caring. Not the fake kind of not caring where you post cryptic quotes on Instagram. I mean the real kind, the kind that doesn't flinch when their names pop up. The kind where your soul decides, you know what, I'm done playing the victim. And that's where the shift happened. I decided to change. Not for them. For me. I went back to the flower shop. I showed up every morning with tired eyes and shaky hands, but forced myself to smile. Customers came and went, and with each bouquet I wrapped, a piece of me healed. I reconnected with friends I had ghosted for weeks. I stopped rereading old texts. I stopped checking if he watched my stories. But life has a twisted sense of humor. Just when you start putting your heart back together, they always come back. Jaden showed up, right outside the flower shop, holding a paper cup of coffee and a look of pathetic guilt smeared across his face. Can we talk? No apology. No explanation. Just a simple request. I should have walked past him. But part of me needed closure. I didn't want to leave the book half-read. So we sat. He told me everything. How he felt confused, how Amelia seduced him, how he thought we weren't serious. And the more he talked, the more I realized he hadn't changed at all. He still wanted to be saved. Still wanted someone to lift him out of his mess. But I wasn't that girl anymore. I loved you when you had nothing, I told him. I loved you when no one else even saw you. And you threw that away. Not just for anyone, but for my sister. He didn't speak. His eyes welled up. But I wasn't crying anymore. You're not a lost boy anymore, Jaden. You're a grown man who made a selfish decision. Own it. And with that, I walked away. No dramatic ending. No slamming doors. Just peace. A heavy, painful peace, but peace nonetheless. Amelia didn't take it well. She hated that I forgave him and walked away with my head high. She tried to get under my skin, posting pictures, tagging him in things, parading their relationship like some kind of trophy. But I didn't react. Because the real power? It's in silence. And that silence spoke louder than any fight ever could. I started journaling, going to the gym, took an online course in design, started dreaming again. And every time I felt like texting him, I reminded myself, he didn't just break my heart. He showed me exactly who I should never fall for again. Because the moment you betray someone who gave you everything, you don't just lose their love. You lose the version of them that would have done anything for you. And that version of me? She's gone for good. Next chapter? It's when things turn in my favor. And no, I didn't need revenge to win. Keep watching. You won't believe what happened next. A few months had passed. I was healing. Slowly. Some days were better than others. Some days, I didn't think about them at all. And on other days, well, Let's just say pain has a sneaky way of showing up when you least expect it, like hearing their song play on the radio, or seeing a couple holding hands in a cafe where we once sat. But I was doing better. Until I got that message. It popped up on my screen while I was restocking roses in the shop. You deserve to know the truth. The number was unknown. No name, no picture. Just one line that made my heart drop to the floor. I stared at it. Was this a scam? A prank? Some kind of cruel joke? And then another message came. Amelia isn't who you think she is. Jaden knows. Ask him about May 4th. I didn't respond, but my hands were shaking. May 4th. That was the day Jaden canceled on me last minute, said he had a job interview. But now I knew better. I couldn't ignore it. So, like an idiot, or maybe a girl who just wanted answers, I called Jaden. He didn't answer. Then I called again. He picked up. Hey. His voice was quiet. I got a message, I said. Someone told me to ask you about May 4th. There was silence on the other end. A silence so thick I could hear the guilt breathing through the phone. And then he said it. I didn't want you to find out like this. I swear, those words. They physically hurt. Like someone pressing on a bruise I'd spent months ignoring. He admitted it. That day, May 4th, he didn't have an interview. He was with Amelia. But not just with her. They had planned it. Together, behind my back. And the worst part? Amelia had told him to lie to me. She said you'd be fine, Jaden added. That you'd get over it. That you always bounce back. Bounce back. Like I was a rubber ball they could throw around until I eventually rolled away. My entire body went numb. And then the final blow. She told me the only reason you helped me was because you wanted to feel superior, that you were never really in love with me. That was it. I hung up. I couldn't breathe. But something inside me, something fierce, snapped. I had spent all this time thinking I was the one who lost. But maybe I was the only one who actually loved. And now I was done being quiet. Done protecting people who didn't deserve it. But out of truth. Because if there's one thing worse than betrayal, it's pretending it never happened. So I opened my laptop. I started typing. Everything. From the first cinnamon roll to the last phone call. And I shared it, anonymously, in a private forum for women who've been betrayed. The responses poured in. Thousands of comments. Stories even worse than mine. Support I didn't know I needed. And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. Turns out, heartbreak is universal. But healing? That starts when you take your pain and turn it into power. What happened next surprised even me. Was going to tell my story. Nin. Ought out of revenge. Let me tell you something about breaking points. They don't look like what you see in the movies. They're not loud, not always dramatic. Sometimes they're just quiet. Mine? It looked like me, sitting alone in my room, staring at a wall, realizing I had been holding in too much for too long. The day after I posted my story online, I got an email. Not just any email. It was from a local podcast host. A woman named Jenna who ran a small show about real-life betrayal and survival stories. She had read my post. She wanted me on the show. At first, I hesitated. I wasn't a public speaker. I was just a girl who fell too hard and lost too much. But then I thought, why not? Why not speak up? Not just for me, but for every girl who's ever been lied to by someone she believed in. So I went. I sat in a tiny studio, mic in front of me, nerves crawling up my spine. And I told the story. All of it. How I met Jaden. How I helped him. How he chose my sister over me. How I rebuilt myself. The episode aired the next day. It exploded. Hundreds of messages, DMs from strangers, emails from girls saying they cried listening to me, saying I gave them strength to leave toxic relationships, saying they finally felt seen. And somewhere in the middle of all of that, I felt proud. For the first time in months, I felt like I had purpose again. But with exposure came drama. Amelia heard it. Jaden too. And let me tell you, they were not happy. She sent me a message. You're so fake. You made yourself the victim. You didn't tell them everything. And he called me, said I ruined his reputation, said I made him look like a monster. All I did was tell my story. But the truth? They did that to themselves. I didn't name names. I didn't drag them through the mud. I didn't even share pictures. I simply told the truth. And if the truth makes you uncomfortable, maybe you weren't supposed to be comfortable in the first place. They couldn't handle it. Jaden stopped calling. Amelia stopped showing up at family dinners. And me? I kept going, kept growing. I started working on a small blog, helping others write their stories. I started therapy. I made new friends. And every time I looked in the mirror, I didn't see a girl who got cheated on anymore. I saw a woman who survived it. And that's power. But the universe wasn't done testing me. Because next came the apology. And it wasn't from who you'd expect. It was Amelia. She showed up one morning at the shop, no makeup, eyes swollen, hands trembling. The last person I ever expected to see walk through that door looking broken. She didn't say much at first. Just stood there, staring at me like she didn't recognize the girl standing behind the counter. "Can we talk?" she finally whispered. I should have said no. I should have told her to leave, that some wounds don't get stitched with sorry. But I didn't. We sat outside, two sisters on a weathered bench, the same one where I first met Jaden. "I messed up," she said. And for the first time in forever, her voice didn't have that usual confidence. It was cracked, small, real. She told me everything. How she knew he was off limits. How the guilt ate her alive. How she never even liked him at first, but somehow ended up falling for the idea of being chosen over me. It wasn't about love, she said. It was about winning. That sentence hit harder than I expected. Because I always knew Amelia was competitive, but I never imagined she saw me as the opponent. I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just sat there, listening. And then I said something that surprised even me. I forgive you. Not because I forgot, but because I didn't want to carry it anymore. Hate is heavy. Resentment is poison. And I was tired of drinking it. Amelia cried, harder than I'd ever seen her cry. And for a moment, just a brief, delicate moment, we weren't enemies. We were just two broken girls trying to figure life out. Jaden? I never saw him again. Last I heard, he moved to another city. Took a job at some warehouse. Tried to start over. But I didn't care anymore. Because I was finally starting over too, without him. I launched my blog into a small platform for women to anonymously share stories. I began hosting workshops at local shelters. I was using my voice for something bigger. I wasn't the girl who got betrayed. I was the girl who turned betrayal into purpose. And that's the kind of story I'd always dreamed of being part of. No prince, no fairy tale. Just real life, real pain, real healing. Because sometimes the best love story is the one you write for yourself. It's funny how life works. The people who break you don't always get the last word. Sometimes they come back, not because they miss you, but because they realize they messed up. Jaden messaged me. Again, after months of silence. "Hey, just wanted to say I saw what you're doing online. I'm proud of you." "Proud of me?" That one sentence made me feel 100 emotions at once, none of them good. I didn't respond. But he kept going. I've changed. I'm sober now. Got a steady job, moved into a small place. I think about you all the time. Still, I didn't respond. Then one night, he showed up at my workshop. I was in the middle of a group session when I saw him standing in the back. He waited until it ended, then approached me slowly, like I was a wild animal he didn't want to scare off. "Can we talk?" I said no, and he nodded like he expected that. "I just needed to see you one last time, to tell you I was wrong about everything, about you." For a second, I looked at him. The same eyes that once held me together now just looked empty. "I don't hate you," I said quietly, "but I don't need you either." And that was that. He walked away. No begging. No drama. Just silence. And for once, I didn't feel broken by it. I felt free. Sometimes closure doesn't come wrapped in an apology. Sometimes it comes in the form of finally not caring whether they say sorry or not. I walked out of that building with my head held high. Because I had something far more powerful than regret. I had peace. I never expected Amelia to come clean about everything. But one evening, while I was closing up the flower shop, she walked in. No makeup, no performance. Just a girl who looked like she'd aged 5 years since we last really talked. She sat on the counter stool like she used to when we were kids, swinging her legs and biting her nails. "I need to tell you something," she said. I didn't say a word, just stared at her, waiting. And then she told me everything. She said she didn't even like Jaden at first, but she saw how I looked at him. Saw how much I was willing to do for someone with nothing. And deep down, it made her angry. Angry that I could love so purely. That I was doing something meaningful, while she felt hollow. She admitted she started flirting with Jaden just to feel important. To prove she still had power over people. But it spiraled fast. He started showing up more for her. She liked the attention. And then, one day, they crossed a line neither of them could take back. "I wanted to stop," she said, "but I didn't know how to undo it without hurting you." And that's when I finally spoke. "You didn't care about hurting me until it was too late." She nodded. No defense. No excuses. I know, and I hate myself for it. I didn't forgive her that night. Not fully, but I saw something real in her eyes. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about Jaden. This was about two sisters, raised under pressure, forced into comparison, never taught how to love each other properly. We sat there in silence for a long time. And maybe that silence was the start of something new. Not repair, but recognition. Because the truth is, sometimes people aren't evil. They're just lost. And sometimes that's worse. I thought I had learned everything I needed to know about Jaden. Turns out, I was wrong. One evening, I received a message from someone named Claire. I didn't recognize the name, but she introduced herself as Jaden's ex-girlfriend, the one he was with before everything fell apart. And what she told me made my stomach turn. Jaden had a pattern. Claire said he used to charm women with sob stories, stories about his hard life, his broken family, how no one believed in him. She said he moved in with her after claiming he was sleeping in his car. Sound familiar? She helped him get a job, bought him new clothes, co-signed a lease. 3 months later, he disappeared, along with some of her electronics and a bit of money from her savings jar. No proof, no police report, just pain. Claire wasn't reaching out for revenge. She just wanted me to know I wasn't the only one. And I needed to hear it, because even though I'd forgiven and moved on, part of me still wondered if Jaden had just made a mistake. Or if I was blind from the start. Her message confirmed it. Jaden was never mine to fix. He was broken long before I met him. And maybe he liked being that way. Some people aren't looking for healing. They're looking for hosts. I thanked Claire for her honesty. We ended up talking for an hour, sharing stories, and even laughing at how similar some of our experiences were. By the end of the conversation, I felt lighter. Closure doesn't always come in a neat little bow. Sometimes it comes from hearing, "Yeah, me too." And that's when I knew the last piece of guilt, the part that still clung to the idea that maybe it was my fault, was gone. Jaden was a lesson. A cruel, complicated, heartbreaking lesson. But a necessary one. And now I was finally ready to move on for real. I used to think closure came from other people. That it came in the form of a heartfelt apology. Or watching karma do its job. Or waking up one day and realizing they miss you. But now I know better. Closure? It's not a moment. It's a decision. And I decided to let go, not just of Jaden, or Amelia, or even the pain. I let go of who I was before all this happened. Because that girl, she deserved better. And now I was going to give her exactly that. I took all the pieces of me that got scattered across a story of betrayal, and I put them back together. Stronger, sharper, softer too. I started traveling. I took a trip to a small coastal town alone, sat by the water, read books, wrote poetry, let myself breathe. I built a life that didn't need someone else to feel whole. And one day, I walked past a bakery in that town, smelled cinnamon in the air, and I smiled, not because I was thinking of him, but because I wasn't. That's the moment I knew. He no longer lived in my story. He was just a chapter. And now I was writing a brand new book. One filled with self-worth, boundaries, laughter, new love, the kind that doesn't beg to be seen. The kind that knows its value. And if you're listening to this and you've been betrayed, let me remind you of something. You are not broken. You are rebuilding. You are not stupid for loving someone who hurt you. You are strong for surviving it. And someday soon, you're going to walk past your own version of that bakery and realize you made it. Not because of them, but in spite of them. And when that day comes, you'll feel something better than revenge. You'll feel free, so go. Live your story, and never apologize for how long it took to heal. Because healing isn't a race. It's a revolution. If this story moved you, please don't forget to give it a like. And if you love emotional, powerful stories like this one, please make sure to subscribe to the channel, please.